right, I'm going to say it for the umpteenth time. This whole affordability crisis is a canard. It's an absolute... The economy is booming, affordability notwithstanding. Anyway, let's talk about this. Dan Clifton's with us, head of policy research at Strategist, all-star. Dan Greenhaus, old friend, Solus chief strategist. It's good to see you on set. Welcome to both of you. Dan Clifton, can I just ask you, this is apropos of nothing. And the economy is booming and affordability and wages are rising faster than prices. But you are my leading expert. Is there going to be a government shutdown, Dan, in a week, okay? Because Trump mentioned it, and we had a little conversation about it last night with Senator Mullen. What's your take on this?
Well, no, we're passing a lot of the appropriation bills. We've passed at least 6 of them, so half of the 12. And there's a good bipartisan effort to get maybe another 4 or 5 of those done. Where you're starting to see a real hiccup is just on one appropriation, which is the Homeland Security, as the Democrats don't want to give any more money to immigration, customs, and so you may have like a partial shutdown in the Homeland Security Department, but it will be nothing like what we saw in November. And the agencies that report the data are all probably going to be funded, which is Commerce for the GDP report and Labor for the employment report. So I think it's a very low probability of a government shutdown. I think the larger issue is that we're really now moving into a period where you're going to get much of the Trump economic boom coming in, and it's going to be the tax refunds coming out, the business incentives being deployed. We have almost $1 trillion of firepower that will come in the economy. And this talk about affordability will be very different by the time we get to mid-year, as you're seeing a productivity boom with large growth coming in the first half of 2026.
And you know, Dan Greenhaus, on top of that, I mean, what Dan Clifton is saying, Trump was very clear at Davos, really well put. Strong economic growth does not cause inflation. And this is a productivity-oriented you got your tax cuts and your deregulation, which is very significant. And of course, we have the artificial intelligence boom and other high-tech areas. I mean, I don't know, affordability, I think inflation goes down, growth goes up. I mean, we've seen this before in the 80s. We saw it a little bit in the 90s. So that's why I just don't understand the affordability argument.
You know, so to take those one by one, first with respect to the inflation and growth, I think there's been a bit of a regime change, so to speak, over the last couple of years, in the sense that what maybe we thought about the relationship between growth and inflation in the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s to some degree is no longer true. I think you can have these days stronger growth without higher inflation, and to a large degree, I think that's what the president's getting at. With respect to the affordability crisis, I'm not there. Listen, I think these are the same headline writers that talk about how 3/4 of the country can't have $500 in an hour. There's been data to refute all those stories as well. There is certainly a segment of the population that is struggling with higher prices. There's no doubt about that. But I think on balance, the economy has weathered the increase in prices. Nobody's happy about it.
Polls, man, some of these polls, you know, we've looked at these polls, and they're so badly weighted between Republicans and Democrats. It's a joke.
Polling in the Trump era has become
awful,
incredibly difficult.
You're exactly right. So, Dan Clifton, stock markets, all right, S&P 500, let's take that. From the bottom in April, I think it's up something like 35%, whatever the right number is. If you're in an economic boom, if you're lucky enough to have falling energy prices, reduced inflation, and rapid growth and profits, right? Lower taxes leads to more profits. Isn't this bull market going to continue?
Absolutely, Larry. And I would just say, I think what's interesting is we're going to have a new Fed chairman in the middle of this. And every single one of those Fed chair candidates are basically saying that we're going to get a productivity boom and rates can go lower without causing inflation on top of that. And so when you look at the stock market, look, it's not going to be linear this year. Midterm elections tend to be a lot tougher for the equity market because there's a lot of noise that's going on. The president's executing a very complicated geopolitical strategy. So I don't think it's going to be linear. But at the end of the day, profits are higher. The economy is strong. And it should power, all else being equal, a higher stock market for 2026.
Dan Clifton, I didn't hear exactly. Who did you say would be the Fed chairman? I didn't hear you.
I would say whoever you get believes that we're in a productivity boom, And I think it's very interesting. The DOJ subpoena changed the equation for who could be Fed chair. And the reason why you're seeing Reader pull up in the odds right now is because he's removed from politics. I do think nations will get some scrutiny, but people are trying to say that Kevin Warsh is too hawkish on the balance sheet. I just think this stuff is overdone. People are overthinking it. And at the end of the day, you're going to get a much better Fed chairman than you have right now.
Who's going to be Fed chair, Dan Greenhaus? I didn't hear you.
I'm going to vote for Dan Greenhaus as Fed chair, but I don't think that's, I'm probably going to lose my money on that one. I'll take Fed governor. But what I will say to Dan's point about a lot of this being overdone, I think a lot of that's exactly right. And the reason I think a lot of that is exactly right is because of the AI story that's so strong in the stock market right now. The Fed can lower a little bit more, the Fed can raise a little bit more, the balance sheet can do X or Y, but the AI story is so strong in technology, in industrials, in some of the materials names, in some of the financials, the utilities. As long as that story remains ongoing, and by all accounts it does, the Fed, in that sense, becomes a bit of a sideshow.
I just want somebody who understands that strong growth doesn't cause inflation. That if you're producing more or building factories and getting more widgets and goods out the door, which is what's happening here with advanced technology and better, that's what I want. Change the models, okay? Jay Powell was a slave to the Fed models. I mean, tariff inflation. It never happened, for heaven's sakes. And the guy spent almost a year obsessing about it. Let's get back to basics. Let's just have a nice, simple, straightforward. How about growing the economy? Trump is right. He wants 20%, all right?
Growth?
Yes. I will take 5, 6, or 7. We might see it for the first time in 45 years.
Yeah, the president, when he talks about how the stock market goes down when there's good news, those of us, Dan and I, who live and die with the markets all day, there was this idea that good news is bad news for the exact reasons that the president does articulate. So his gut in that sense is right, that the Fed does quite often, not always, but does quite often sort of suppress growth on the idea that growth eventually leads to inflation.
Lousy forecasting. Anyway, very good. Dan Clifton and Dan Greenhaus. Great pleasure, gentlemen. Thanks very much. By the